the pursuit of answers. The chase for such answers has weaved its way through numerous formats over the centuries. Oral communications preserved as indigenous folklore had existed for many centuries, before becoming known to readers in the West through interactions with various explorers of the 19th century. Into the 20th century, the subject was sensationalized through word of mouth, postal mail, telephone conversations, newsletters, books, magazines, television, and eventually the nascent World Wide Web of the 1990s to today's endless digital entertainment, reality shows, social media, podcasts, and documentaries. The Internet's predecessor in the public domain was a text-based interface known as Usenet. These were few self-contained online communities, sometimes located on a computer in someone's residence that could be connected to directly through a modem. If you knew how to set up a modem on a primitive computer and knew of the phone number to dial into, you could have tapped into considerable Bigfoot debate on that system as much as there is today. Digital communication was mostly in text format since it was prior to HTML being rendered by a browser, which was not yet invented. On these early electronic communication systems, dedicated critics were proud of the time they spent reviewing pixelated enhancements of something undefined in the woods using whatever art software programs existed in that era. Just like today, these critics dismissed every blurry photo as a tree stump or a costumed actor. Independent bulletin board systems of the 1970s lasted through the early 1990s until AOL became the favored method of online communication. Online forums eventually became stable pathways for Bigfoot information exchange. Print publications and postal mail were still relied on for current information until email and web pages fully caught on. In all of these mediums, there was a theorist who contended Bigfoot was the Nephilim of Old Testament fame. Bigfoot Bible theories always stirred up people's emotions. My view is, even if you're writing a film script, any biblical theories that include Bigfoot are invalid. The Bible, in all of its forms and spiritual context, is a completely separate topic from cryptid investigation. This most notably includes Old Testament characters like the partially human Nephilim and Esau, who was supposedly also part animal. There was always at least one paranormal Bigfoot enthusiast who posted lengthy transcripts of his or her telepathic communications with a Bigfoot. Of course, there was also a UFO Bigfoot guy, a black helicopter guy, and the self-proclaimed expert on all matters of Bigfoot, not to be confused with the supposed academic guy or the guy who says he has secret knowledge of Bigfoot's origins. A hidden hand of some government, somewhere, would take a dim view if he divulged too much. There was also the lurker guy who rarely posted, but when he did, it was always something profound that he never followed up on. For a moment, everyone on the forum thought there was going to be a revelatory breakthrough, but it was just another false lead, a familiar pattern of disappointment among Bigfooters, online and offline. Skeptics and debunkers carefully monitored all channels for mentions of Bigfoot being authentic. There was always a bandwagon who argued against everything regardless of what the topic was about. There was the guy who was there because he didn't like the idea of Bigfoot potentially being an undiscovered form of human. Another guy objected to it being a potential undiscovered form of ape. There was a guy who desperately wanted to kill one and put it on a slab, allegedly for the benefit of science, not his ego. There was also the environmentalist seeking to counter any attempts at killing a Bigfoot. there was always at least one person who tried to take a middle ground. All voices of reason were drowned out by the intersecting arguments. Anyone who scrolls through Bigfoot channels of today's social media will see that while online aliases have changed, the roles and arguments have remained remarkably consistent through the decades. The internet spawns new generations of personalities who get involved in Bigfootery and recycle the same ideas from the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, and so on. Bigfoot is popular because it's compellingly disagreeable to many people. The subject triggers an emotional reaction that is not easily dismissed. The possible existence of Bigfoot is considered to be threatening and offensive. Other people consider Bigfoot unfathomable because it's too comical or too strange a notion. Yet, they make Bigfoot an online hobby because they want to know what it is. Since Bigfoot can't be solved easily, conspiracy theories emerge. A popular theory is that there's a Bigfoot carcass being kept in a freezer somewhere, and Bigfoot genetic samples are already in the possession of a shadow operation. Public knowledge of Bigfoot is stifled by anyone who has a Bigfoot secret to protect. If such a conspiracy is true, that is an amazingly efficient cover-up operation that spans several decades. In the minds of some people, this shadow operation has spared no expense to prevent leaks of their knowledge into the public domain. Black helicopters have arrived in a timely manner at a scene and transported a 500 to 1,000-pound Bigfoot carcass, or parts of it, to the nearest secure facility. Sometimes, these black helicopters flew surveillance near an investigator's home. The message is clear. We know that you know our secret. Presumably, physical Bigfoot evidence was examined by wildlife biologists wearing black personal protective equipment and sworn to secrecy with what they have learned before the carcass was put back into stasis. Imagine what the budget must be for whoever funds that project. Where are black helicopter bases exactly? They seem to cover so much ground so quickly. And who are these wildlife biologists ignoring their family obligations so they can guard this truth on 24/7 standby? It must be an important job if they can never speak of it to anyone throughout their life. There's always a possibility that a shadow operation somewhere in the world has a Bigfoot body part on ice. Though it seems more reasonable that wildlife specialists on any payroll would spend their time concerned with invasive species, algae, endangered animals, water quality, toxicity in soils, and so on. When it comes to science and studying nature, Bigfoot would rank near the very bottom of concerns of anyone, anywhere in the world. For there to be suppression of information or conspiracy to stifle Bigfoot evidence, it would have to be considered important information. Even though it's a topic of interest because it touches an evolutionary nerve, my bet is Bigfoot is not considered important enough to launch a well-funded, efficient suppression operation. What is impressive is how convincingly Bigfoot conspiracy stories are often told, whether on podcasts or directly from the conspiracy believer. Despite interruptions, the storytellers are able to describe unfolding events in sequence, even after someone interjects. My first reaction is that someone would have to have natural skill or be a paid voice actor who enjoys what they do to remember so many details. It seems to be a difficult chore to create fictionalized stories and stick to the script during a recorded conversation. If the stories are an elaborate editing job, that takes even more time and effort to cleanly pull together to suit someone's personal agenda. In one tale, Bigfooters are chased on dusty roads within the remote thickets of East Texas by unmarked shiny black SUVs. Investigators realize too late that their vehicle has a hidden GPS tracking device. The investigators are forced to pull over and harassed by bearded men in black who delete their digital content containing the clearest video evidence of Bigfoot ever captured. When the story is told to locals, the bearded SUV guys turn their attention to intimidating small-town cops and mayors to keep quiet or else. The menacing bearded men have access to all kinds of instant information on their laptops, which implies they are intelligence operatives. There is no way to verify any of it. The end result is actually pretty good entertainment, but far too over the top to have a semblance of truth. Though some people genuinely believe it is a valid event. Others retell the tale when the mood needs a lift around the campfire. Today, the mediums and degrees of complexity have changed at an incredible pace. With each level of technical advancement comes challenges to interpret potential hoaxes. Especially so when anyone of any age and skill level can figure out how to convincingly edit images and use artificial intelligence to create audio and video, create sound effects, and document fictitious scenarios open to the imagination. The result is a vast trove of information that only truly dedicated detractors make the time to dig through to verify. Some Bigfooters believe there is scientific bias against their views and their proposed evidence. That is probably true, but also consider that evidence is not really evidence if it requires subjective interpretation. There is a big disconnection between Bigfootery's many versions of citizen science and what legitimate science actually involves.